Okay.
So much.
My blissful selves. Today's subject is the desire of sensory objects gives unhappiness. Saint Nijigunaga proclaims that the desire of sensory objects gives us unhappiness. But we have thought that the desire of sensory objects gives us happiness. So the five animals, they lose their life for the sensory objects that they desire. For example, the so-called moth. Moth is attracted by the form of light, and for that sake it loses its life. Then the bee is attracted by the smell of the nectar, which is very fragrant, and for the smell the bee loses its life. Then the taste, for example, the fish loses its life for the sake of the taste of the earthworm. Then the elephant, the male elephant, loses its life for which it has been attracted by the touch of the female elephant. And if it doesn't get the female elephant, it dies. It loses its life. And lastly, the deer. The deer is attracted for the sound of the music. And it loses its life for the words, for the sound. So all these five animals, they lose their life for their concerned sensory objects. But man thinks that he can derive happiness by all these five sensory objects. That is the form, the smell, the taste, the touch, and the sound. So how he can be saved? Man usually thinks that the sensory objects give happiness, and he engages in the sensual enjoyment of the sensory objects, of the sensory organs. How he can be saved? So let us take one by one. Now the bee. So the bee has been attracted for the fragrant smell of the nectar that has been present at the bottom of the lotus flower. The bee will be in a position to fly from one flower to the other flower. And lastly, it sits at the bottom of the lotus flower. And at the bottom of the lotus flower, so there is the nectar. And the nectar has a very fragrant smell. So the bee has been attracted by the fragrant smell that has been present in the nectar. And the bee sits at the bottom of the lotus flower, and it has been attracted by the fragrant smell of the nectar that has been present at the bottom of the lotus flower. So it will be in a position to enjoy the fragrant smell of the nectar at the bottom. So during the day, the petals of the lotus flower are opened. And in the evening, the petals of the lotus flower will be closed like this, completely closed like this. So the bee has so sharp teeth, and by those sharp teeth, it can pierce the blackberry plant. The blackberry plant is just like an iron, but this bee can pierce its teeth into the blackberry wood. But it cannot pierce the so soft petals of lotus flower, because it has been attracted by the fragrant smell of the nectar that has been present at the bottom of the lotus flower. And the legs of the bee will be attached to the nectar, and the nectar will not be in a position to allow the bee to fly, and it will be continuously enjoying the fragrant smell of the nectar. So it will not pierce the petals of the lotus flower, and it cannot come out. And by evening, all the petals of the lotus flower will be closed. And when all the petals of the lotus flower will be closed, so inside for the bee, there will be no oxygen. And there will be deficiency of oxygen. By the deficiency of oxygen, the bee dies. That means the bee loses its life for smell. Then, second, the fish. You know, the fishermen catch the fishes. For catching the fishes, the fisherman uses the fish hook, and that fish hook has been made up of steel material. And to that steel material, a rope will be tied. And that rope, a stick will be tied. And at the level of the water, so there will be a dross. The dross will be maintained at the surface of the water. Then the fish hook is there, no? So that to that fish hook, the earthworm will be attached. That is, the fish hook will be pierced into the elementary canal of the earthworm. So the fish has been attracted by the earthworm, and it will be in a position to swallow the hook. When it swallows the hook, so the hook will be pierced into the throat of the fish, and that fish hook cannot be taken out. The fish hook will be in a position to catch the fish, and the fish hook becomes heavy, and the dross that has been maintained at the surface of the water sinks down. When the dross sinks down, so the fisherman thinks that the fish has been caught, and he takes the fish out. He takes the fish outside the water. And in the outside water, so the oxygen concentration is more in the atmosphere. And due to the maximum oxygen concentration in the outside atmosphere, the fish loses its life. The fish loses its life for the taste of the tongue. In the same way, the other animals also lose their life. Then the elephant. So the male elephant and the female elephant. So the male elephant is attracted by the female elephant. So when the male elephant hears the sound of the female elephant, so the male elephant will be intoxicated. And when the male elephant is intoxicated, it breaks the bushes, the trees on the way. And if the male elephant didn't get the female elephant, so the male elephant will be in a position to rub its genital organ to the trunk of a tree. By this, the genital organ of a male elephant will be rotted. And when the genital organ will be rotted, so it loses its life. So the male elephant dies for the sake of touch with the female elephant like that. Then the moth. So the moth has been attracted by the light of the lantern, by the light of the gas, or even the chimney lamp. So all these will have a flame, the light. So the so-called moth has been attracted by the light or by the flame of the lantern or the gas or chimney lamp. So they will have a flame, and the moth directly falls in the fire because it has been attracted by the beauty of the light, and it directly falls in the fire and it gives its life. So the moth gives its life for the sake of light, the beauty of the light. So in the same way, the deer has been attracted by musical sound. When it in a position to hear the musical sound, it comes to the place of musical sound, and it will be standing there. So the people nearby can be in a position to very easily kill it. They kill the deer, they remove the skin, and they can sell the skin. Later, they can cut the flesh of the deer into many pieces and they can sell it. So, in this way, the deer has been in a position to give its life for sound, for musical sound. So, in this way, the 5 animals, so the moth gives its life for form, beauty of light. Then the fish gives its life for taste of the earthworm. Then the male elephant gives its life for the touch of the female elephant. And the bee has been in a position to give its life for the fragrant smell of the nectar of the lotus flower. And lastly, the deer is attracted by the musical sound and it gives its life for a musical sound. But man has been attracted even by the form, the beauty of the light. He has been attracted by the smell of the fragrant stains. So he has been attracted by taste. He has been attracted by touch. He has been attracted by the sound. How the man can be saved? So he will be engaged in the sensual enjoyment of all the 5, the form, the smell, the taste, the touch, and the sound. How he can be saved? So if we inquire how exactly man has been attracted by all these, the form, the smell, the so-called taste, the touch, and the sound. Usually, man has been attracted by loud sound. So many have been engaged, in a position to hear the loud voice of the loudspeaker. The loud voice of the loudspeaker causes ear cancer. And for hearing the loud voice, loud noise, man gives his life. loses his life. Then even man has been attracted by the touch of the women. Men have been attracted by the touch of the women. The women have been attracted by the touch of man. And men and women, they involve in sexual indulgence to the maximum. And they will be in a position to lose their semen. And the semen has been lost to the maximum. The immunity power that has been present in the body will be lost to the maximum. And the worms concerned can easily enter the body, and they will be in a position to cause many of the diseases to the body, and the body dies. So in the same way, men and women lose their life for the sake of sexual indulgence. Men and women are attracted by each other, by the beauty of each other, and they commit adultery. They commit adultery. For committing adultery, they quarrel, and lastly, they kill each other. So how man can be happy if he has been attracted by the touch? Even man has been attracted by the taste of food. For example, if we will be in a position to eat the groundnut seeds, raw groundnut seeds, we take little quantity of groundnut seeds. And if we add salt to the groundnut seeds, and if we boil it, we take double the quantity of groundnut seeds, of raw groundnut seeds. So when we add salt to the groundnut seeds, and when we boil them, so half of the nutrients, the salts, the vitamins will be burned. And even we will be in a position to fry them. And when we fry the groundnut seeds, so all the nutrients, all the salts, all the vitamins will be burned completely. And this causes deficiency diseases, because in our body, so there will be no carbohydrates that have been required, no proteins that have been required, no lipids that have been required, no vitamins, no salts like that. And this causes the deficiency diseases, and due to that, they lose their life. That means for a taste, man loses his life. So many persons, so they have been attracted by sweets. So they have been addicted to the habit of taking the sweets. And if a particular person is suffering by diabetes, and he cannot stop taking these sweets, and this causes the increase in the blood. So the sugar level in the blood has to be maintained when fasting 70 to 110. But the sugar quantity that is in our blood, it will be 600, 400, 300, 200. And this causes brain hemorrhage. causes heart attack, causes liver attack, causes pancreas attack, causes kidney failure. So the failure of the blood flow in the brain will be there. Failure of heartbeat, the liver fails, the pancreas fails, the kidneys fail, and lastly, the life fails. So in this way, man loses his life for taste. And not only that, some persons like the salts to be there, more salt in the food, and they like pickles. So they eat the pickles in the maximum quantity. And when they enjoy the pickles to the maximum quantity, so the quantity of salt will be more in the blood. And if the salt will be more, there will be increase of blood pressure. And this blood pressure results in high blood pressure. And if there will be high blood pressure, there will be heart attack. And when there will be heart attack, lastly, there will be heart failure. And if this is the case, how man can be saved if he has been engaging in the enjoyment of sensory objects, of all the sensory organs concerned. And not only that, man has been addicted to the bad habits like the intoxicants, eating tobacco, smoking tobacco, drinking alcohol, smoking marijuana, taking LSD and opium, and sleeping tablets. So if we eat the tobacco and if we smoke the tobacco, it causes cancer. And by cancer, man will be in a position to lose his life. And people drink the alcohol. And if they drink the alcohol, it causes the liver disease, particularly the jaundice. And even many people smoke marijuana. And the smoking of marijuana results into a gangrene disease by which the entire organ can be rotten and only the skeleton remains. And smoking of marijuana results in madness of the concerned person. So if we learn these bad habits once, it is very, very difficult to give them up. And many people have been attracted by the smell of the fragrant stains. So there are some stains and their smell is very fragrant. And if they will be in a position to inspire the fragrancy of the stains, so there will be a severe attack to the brain of the individual concerned. And this results in fainting. Even by this fainting, man will be in a position to lose his life. So like this, man has been in a position to lose his life for all the sensory objects of all the sensory organs concerned. And if he has been attracted by all these, the form, the smell, the taste, the touch, the sound, how can he is saved? he cannot be saved. So that is why Saint Nijugunarya proclaims to give up the desires of all the sensory objects, of all the sensory organs concerned, if at all we want to become happy. So you feel that the happiness that we experience is from the sensory objects. So it is a wrong idea. There is no happiness at all in sensory objects. But the happiness is in our true self. For example, when we have been in a position to get a particular sensory object of our like, for example, the sweet. So when we try to enjoy the sweet, just for a moment, the mind becomes calm. And when the mind becomes calm, in the calm mind, the happiness of our own Atman or the self has been reflected and experienced. But man thinks that the sensual enjoyment of sensory objects gives happiness. But if we continue to enjoy the sensory object for more time, so again our mind gives up the first sensory object and it goes to the second. So if at all the happiness is there in the sensory objects, why our mind gives up first sensory object and goes to the secondary sensory object? Again it gives up the secondary sensory object and goes to the third sensory object. Again from the third sensory object, it goes to the fourth. Again from the fourth sensory object, it goes to the fifth. And it lastly goes to the sleep. So this clearly indicates that there is no happiness at all in sensory enjoyment. So the happiness has been only experienced in the calm mind. So when our mind becomes calm, so our self, Atman, it is of the nature of happiness, and the happiness of our self, true self, or the Atman, is only reflected in the calm mind and experienced. But man has a wrong understanding that the sensory objects are givers of happiness. We have been in a position to enjoy happiness by different adjuncts. So whatever the adjuncts they may be, but the happiness that has been experienced is of self only, true self only, of Atman only, but it is not of different adjuncts. For example, drinking intoxicants. We will be drinking the alcohol. When we will be in a position to drink the alcohol, so the nerves become inactive. The brain becomes inactive and the mind becomes calm. And in the calm mind, the happiness of our true self or the Atman only is reflected and experienced. So even by drinking alcohol, we experience happiness. But the happiness that we experience by drinking alcohol, it is of our true self only. Then man will be in a position to practice the pranayama. So during pranayama, what happens? The vayu becomes firm we catch the Vayu. And there is a relationship between controlling the Vayu and the mind. So, when we control the prana, the mind is controlled. And the mind becomes calm. And in that calm mind, our self, that is, of the nature of happiness, has been reflected in the calm mind and experienced. So that is how, even by practicing pranayama, the happiness that we experience is of our Atman only, but it is not of practicing pranayama. So we'll be working in a field, or anywhere else. And in the evening, so we'll be yawning like that. So when we yawn, then the prana is controlled. When the prana becomes calm, the mind becomes calm. And when the mind becomes calm, the happiness of our true self only is reflected and experienced. So, the happiness we experience by pranayama is of our Atman only, but not of prana. And even painting, if we will have severe damage to the brain or so there will be fainting. So during fainting, our mind becomes calm. And when our mind becomes calm, our true nature, happiness, that happiness is reflected in the calm mind and experience. So whatever the adjunct it may be, for example, the deep sleep. In a deep sleep, we experience happiness. Why? So there are no sensory objects, there is no body, gross body, there is no any other thing in the deep sleep. But whose happiness it is? And if we analyze the experience of deep sleep, we will come to know that in deep sleep the self is there. And our self will be in a position to know whether anybody is there in the sleep or not. If anything is known or not. If there is happiness or not. So the knower, our true self, is there in our deep sleep. And there is no other thing at all. But happiness is experienced. And that happiness is also of our true nature, true self of the Atman. So, in this way, whatever the adjuncts they may be, if there is experience of happiness, and that experience of happiness is of our Atman only, but it is of not of anything else. So that is how Saint Nijugunarya has been in a position to advise us. So don't have the desire of sensory objects. If you will have the desire of sensory objects, and if you want to get permanent happiness, it is impossible. By having the desires of sensory objects, you will be unhappy. All the five animals, they give their life for the sake of the sensory objects. Even man has been in a position to be engaged to enjoy the sensual enjoyment of sensory objects. How he can be saved? So Saint Nijugunarya proclaims, don't have the desires of sensory objects, of sensory organs, but you have the desire of true self, of true Atman, so that you will be in a position to get permanent happiness. And by this, I end my talk.